whole beginning of the semester where we talked about atoms becoming molecules, and then molecules get put together and behave in a certain way that allow the cells to form, and then the cell being the unit of life. So it's really it's metabolism that allows the cells to stay alive. And if the cells stay alive, then of course the organism stays alive. What is going to be relevant in the metabolism chapter 8 is going to be the enzyme activity lab. And so you can coordinate that information. So we're back to definitions that we really already have already. This is nothing new. We know that chemical metabolism is all the chemical reactions of the body. And this is just an example of the cascade of chemical reactions that occur. We usually don't just have one reaction going, we have multiples. And so here's our starting molecule, and we notice that no reaction in the body can proceed unless we have an enzyme. And we'll talk specifically, we vaguely said that enzymes are catalysts, or they increase the rate of reaction, but what we want to do by the time we're finished with this chapter is have a more sophisticated idea of what that actually means. So with the help of an enzyme that's going to catalyze, we can make molecule B, and with the help of another enzyme, we can turn B into C, and with the help of another enzyme. And so this is a cascade of chemical reactions that are going to be going on in the cell. There's no magic number. It doesn't mean that there always has to be 4. There could be more, there could be fewer, but the point is that this is a dynamic system, and what we're trying to emphasize here is these metabolic pathways need enzymes, as well as ATP, and so we should probably get that out front. No metabolism in the body can occur without 1, ATP, and without 2, enzymes. And the enzymes are proteins, which is exactly why that whole DNA that's sitting in there in that nucleus is so crucial, because it's the DNA that specifies which protein, which enzyme is going to be made. And that's exactly why people don't survive when they have mutations in DNA. The proteins start getting made incorrectly, which means a lot of the enzymes are made incorrectly. And without those, there can be no metabolic behavior. Okay, so here is 2 levels of metabolism. You can have 2 forms of metabolism. You can have metabolism, and you can have anabolism. So both of these are different forms of metabolism. So metabolism means generally all the chemical reactions of the body, and then now we're breaking them down to which kind of chemical reactions are going on. Metabolism, spell it correctly. Metabolism. A catabolic reaction is a breaking down. And an anabolic reaction is a building up. And so what you're seeing up there are 2 sides of that coin. Notice, there's a few things to notice in these 2 different kinds of reactions. Here is here's one large molecule, and you're breaking the bonds to form monomers, so this is a catabolic reaction. One thing to notice is in order to break a covalent bond, you are undergoing hydrolysis, so you could make a synonym. Metabolism is a hydrolytic reaction. What does that mean? Hydro is water, lysis means to break, and so in a hydrolytic reaction, you're using water in order to break the bonds. And so here they're showing you how that's done. We're dealing only here with organic molecules that are in covalent bonds. And so we're going to have an enzyme that has the ability to break the water. Water broken down is OH and H. If we add one of the OHs to one end of the molecule and an H to the other, we have broken a bond. And so hydrolysis literally allows us to make monomers out of polymers. so your whole digestive system. So we can add another synonym. This is equivalent to digestion. So when you're talking about a digestive system, you're eating meat, which is protein, and then through hydrolysis, you're breaking the proteins down to their building blocks, which are amino acids. The other thing we notice about a catabolic reaction is it releases energy. And so we talk about fats and carbohydrates as being high energy food. And so this is a very overhand overview of the reality that if you're using carbohydrates, like you're eating starch, which is a polysaccharide, and you're going to break it down to its monomers, which is glucose, that glucose eventually downstream is going to enter into the mitochondria to make tons and tons of ATP. If we use fats, we made fatty acid molecules in lab, lots and lots of carbons and hydrogens. All of those hydrogens are going to feed into that mitochondria, into that intermembrane space, and make lots and lots of ATP. So when we talk about foods being high energy, what we really mean at a cellular level is it has the ability to make ATP. And ATP, we always come back to, is our energy molecule. Because remember, metabolism needs enzymes, but it also needs ATP. The other side of the coin of metabolism, so why don't we add that to our definition? Metabolism releases energy. So here we have the other side. This is anabolism. We have, even a layman is familiar with the word anabolism. We have anabolic steroids. What do anabolic steroids do? They build up muscle. And so ana means literally up. And so you're talking about a process that is building up in the chemical sense. Here we have monomers, and we're putting them together in covalent bonds to make a bigger molecule, so we're building the molecules up. And notice a few things about that. This is what's called a dehydration synthesis reaction. And so make that synonym. Anabolism is done by dehydration synthesis. So what is dehydrate? You're taking out water. And so here you see we had we're going to take an OH, and we're going to take an H. We're going to take that out of the molecule, and that's going to free up some electrons. And those free electrons can then bind with each other, and that's how we form the larger molecule. So that's exactly why when they talk about in nutrition, make sure you drink your 8 glasses of water a day. What are you doing with that water? You're using the water to allow you to make and anabolize or make up larger molecules that you may need for your life, the life of the cell, glycogen, etc. Notice another thing about dehydration synthesis, you have to use energy. So this is equivalent, an anabolic reaction is equivalent to going uphill. And when you are moving anything uphill, you need to put energy into it. If you're trying to move a boulder uphill, the energy you're putting into it is the contraction of your own muscle. If you're in a chemical molecular situation, the energy you're putting into it is going to be ATP. So you're making ATP to use ATP. And so both of these reactions are going on in the body, encompassing that whole category that we're talking about as metabolism. Okay, so this is the diagram you should be looking at. This is the this is all the terminologies that you should be associating with it. And if you do that, you're getting a head start. This is cellular respiration. This is a catabolic. This is an example of a catabolic reaction. As complicated as it may look, it's actually a simplified version of cellular respiration. Cellular respiration is we have a whole chapter coming up on cellular respiration. It's a term that means usually for if we limit ourselves to animals, it means in the end you're going to need oxygen. So all that oxygen that you're breathing in, you're eventually going to use in the mitochondria. So cellular respiration occurs in a cell And there's 3 steps. There is a step that is, let me see, up here. They're not labeling them, so we won't label them either. So we'll wait to the next chapter. But one of the steps, the first step occurs in the cytosol, and the other 2 steps occur in the mitochondria. Why they're showing this here is to give you the example of metabolism. Cellular respiration is a catabolic pathway. What you're doing is taking, you're eating, you have some potato, French fried potatoes for lunch. Potatoes have starch in them. Starch is polysaccharide. The enzymes are going to hydrolyze the polysaccharide into glucose. The glucose is going to move into the cell. The cell is going to use the glucose to go through the cellular respiration pathway, and at the end of it, we're going to make a lot of ATP. Notice that we have other foods that we can use in this catabolic pathway. We can eat some meat, and meat is all protein, and so that goes into the cellular respiration pathway. The only difference is it just enters in another place. We can have some fats in our diet, and we can also have those molecules. The fatty acids get broken down. They also feed into the cellular respiration pathway, but in a different place. And that's why when we talk about cellular respiration, we'll start with the carbohydrates, which would be, like, for example, the starch, because that uses the entire 3 steps of the cellular respiration pathway. It doesn't shortcut and go into different levels. So for right now, the only thing we need to get out of this is that cellular respiration is an example of a catabolic pathway. You're breaking down your large organic molecule foodstuffs into monomers that will eventually be used to make ATP. You, unfortunately or fortunately, cannot talk about metabolism unless you do work with or deal with the concept of energy. We started it here. We said that metabolism releases energy and anabolism uses energy, and so we have to give some discussion of what energy is. If you're taking a chemistry course, if you're taking a physics course, you deal in great extent and great length with energy. In general, for biology, we can shortcut a lot of it, but energy in general, in a physics term, it allows work to be done. Work can be anything. It can be a contraction of the skeletal muscle, it can be cell dividing, it can be any biological function that can get defined as work. And there are in physics different forms of energy. And so here we have one form of energy, the changing of heat to mechanical energy. This diagram is taken from some writings that were found in archaeological expeditions dating back to buildings that were built about 200 BC. And what the diagram is typifying is the first mechanical door opener. And so here, what they're doing, if you look very, okay, here's the door they want to open. Here is a big vat filled with water, and here they're lighting a fire over the water. So they light the fire, that generates the heat. They have a system of pipes that come down and boil the water. When you boil water, you're creating movement. The water is flowing through here, and it's turning this pole with ropes attached to it. And so as the pole turns, it's pulling the rope, and then the rope is attached to the door. And so according to the article this was a historical article relating to physics, and according to this was in ancient Greece, and the sages at that time were trying to convince people that they can perform magic. And so part of the magic was to open the door without them touching it. And so this was all underground, but nobody saw all this going on. And even if they did see it, they probably didn't understand what was going on. And so to them, all they knew was a fire was lit, and then magically the door would open. And so this is, for our purposes, one of the earliest demonstrations of the transformation of energies. The transformation of heat energy, which is the boiling of the water, the lighting of the water, and actual opening of the door. So that's one aspect of energy. Heat energy, mechanical energy, and what we're getting towards the transformation of energy. Energy can be changed from one form to another. And that's exactly what we're doing in the body and metabolism. You're eating food, your enzymes are breaking it down into chemical energy, which is going to be ATP, and then ATP will be harnessed to be able to allow muscles to contract, which would be an example of mechanical energy. So as much as it may seem distant from biology, you wouldn't be able to be alive and be functioning if you didn't do all of this. Here's another more familiar form of energy that biology is doing. This is kinetic energy. Kinesis means to move. And so kinetic energy is energy of movement. And traditionally we talk about two forms of energy. Something has potential energy, or it has the kinetic energy, which has been converted into the actual movement. So the example that I don't particularly like, the example is here's the diver getting ready to contract his muscles and dive off the board. That would be analogous to potential energy. And then when the muscles begin to contract, that moves him, and that movement would be the example of kinetic energy. That is kind of a low-level biological example of kinetic and potential energy. More sophisticated examples of in physics or chemistry will be given in those courses. Here is an example of what a living organism would do with this energy. Let me see if this quickly comes up. These are a particular kind of squid. We don't need the Linnaeus terms called firefly squid. One of the properties of animals is that they can become bioluminescent. They're creating light energy. And so there is no sound here, so you can just look into the squid roaming around, and then when they get stressed or when they're trying to find a mate, they have what's called photophores. These are all the bioluminescent enzymes that are in these glands, and they're going to start to glow. These are bacteria glowing. So pretty soon I'll show the squid. So they use it to communicate with each other, and they use it to find mates. Part of the communication is when they do find their mate, they start glowing to keep another male away from the female, so they can dominate. So that is an example of bioluminescence. So a lot of animals that live, especially in the deep waters, where the light doesn't penetrate, have that capability of bioluminescence. That's a light energy. So that's an example of chemical energy being converted into light energy. So we're still dealing with that whole idea of energy and different forms of energy, and then thirdly, the transformations of different kinds of energy. You can't talk about energy without talking about thermodynamics. And so thermodynamics is one of the basic laws of the universe, essentially. The laws of thermodynamics were discovered in the 1800s. Lots and lots of people around the world were involved. Those names are very precious to people who care and people who know. And so that we have, there's 3 laws of thermodynamics. Usually in biology we only talk about 2. And so here is one law of thermodynamics, that matter cannot be created or destroyed, it can only be transformed. And so here you have the chemical energy is going to be the food that that animal is eating, and then it can be translated into what we were just talking about. That animal can start using that ATP it's making into muscle contraction, to move, to run, etc. So the first law of thermodynamics relates to what can and cannot be done in this universe. so we think about the terminology that's usually used in thermodynamics, that you're talking about a closed system. And in a closed system, you cannot create matter from nothing. You can only convert matter and energy, for that matter. And then the one that deals more directly with biology is the second law of thermodynamics. And the second law of thermodynamics is talking about the dissipation of energy and the creation, and relating to order. And when you talk about order, you're talking about entropy, or considering, I should say, consider entropy. Entropy actually is a state of increasing disorder. And so here we have an example of an animal that is running, and so he's using chemical energy, and as a effect of the running and the muscle, the contractions, that's a chemical reaction, and so he's generating heat. In fact, if we say that our body temperature is 37 degrees centigrade normally, we are that temperature because we have a set rate of metabolism that has chemical reactions that generate heat to bring our body up to that. In the second law of thermodynamics, the heat is going to be dissipated out into the so-called universe, which is the environment, and that is increasing entropy. It is increasing disorder. Heat is our molecules in a gaseous state, essentially. It's a molecules in increased kinetic energy. And so molecules that are increasing in kinetic energy will determine whether are going to be more disordered. Here's an example of that. We started out with our discussion of diffusion, one of the basic laws of biology and physics. Here we had a dye going into water. That's an ordered state. We asked the question, what was going to happen to this dye over time? We said that the substance would go from a level of high concentration to low towards equilibrium. Equilibrium is the most disordered state. And then we said further that when things that are at just equilibrium, there is no more work that can be done. Nothing's going to happen. Molecules are not going to go back into the concentrated state. And so for a biological system, the only time we're at equilibrium essentially is when we're dead. All of biology and all of homeostasis is dedicated to keeping us away from equilibrium. We talked about the active pumps, the ATP-driven pumps that move things across the membrane against their gradient. And so the entropy in biology and in physics is used to predict whether a reaction will go, meaning go from reactant to product spontaneously, or whether you're going to have to put work and effort into making the reaction go. And here is an energetically favorable reaction. If you have an explosion, that is going to be it's releasing energy with a high degree of disorder. And so the whole metabolic chapter is based on how do we prevent ourselves from exploding. We want to have chemical reactions occur, but in a highly ordered and controlled way so that we can make ATP, and then we can use that ATP to contract muscles. We don't want to explode. And so the rest of the chapter and also the respiration chapter